We are working on the Shooting Stars Quilt. It is a pattern by Jordan Fabrics, and we are doing this in part. So we have completed the blocks, and now we're working on the sashing. With the sashing, we also have our corners, and I know I don't have enough, but I do have some extra fabric for it. So I have all of my stars, and they are here. And then I have my next project, and I need to pick this up just so that I don't get it pushed all over the place as I'm putting this quilt together. Okay, so we have our blocks, and they are either blue corners with red sides, or they are red sides with blue corners. So what I do want to do when I'm putting these together is I do want these side by side, and I think I'll raise the camera up a little bit. I want them side by side so that I have them alternating. That's a little bit better, I think. So I'll have them like this, even though there's going to be a piece of sashing in between the layers. So it'll look like that. Okay, so I have 5 rows that I need to do. They're going to have sashing between the layers. I can add my sashing on the outside. So whatever the outside is, that's going to have a piece of sashing. There's going to be sashing in between and one on the other side. There are 15 blocks, which means that there needs to be 3 blocks on each row, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 sashings between them. So we'll get started with the red, and all we're going to do is take our sashing, line it up corner to corner with our block, and we're going to stitch. And of course, before I do that, it would be nice if I changed my foot. Let me lift that up. I was working on another project and I changed feet. So this is a traditional foot that we use with most sewing projects. For my quilting projects, because everything is a standard 1/4 inch foot, as a standard 1/4 inch seam, I'm using a 1/4 inch foot. And so the 1/4 inch foot for me has a guard on here. This is a plastic one. They have metals as well. It has a little guard. So what happens is from the needle point to the edge should be a 1/4 inch. And the key word is should. So sometimes we bend that guard and we may get a little bit more than a 1/4 inch. Sometimes we go past the guard and we don't get what we need. So now I'm going to take this. You can do a back stitch if you like, just to knot that thread in place. And then we're going to stitch down. Down to the other end, and I just want to back stitch there as well. And I'm going to do the same thing throughout. All of my sashings are here, and it really doesn't matter. Everybody's going to have it on one side. Some are going to have it on both sides. Now, the key to keeping everything straight is that typically you would It's not a must, but you should. If your blocks are a certain width or length, you want your sashing to be that same length. So then that way you're not doing a lot of stretching of either the block or the sashing. So we're just lining everything up. For this particular quilt, the measurements should be what they're supposed to be. If I did what I was supposed to do, everything should line up. But again, it's key to measure and make sure that you do what you're supposed to do. I do check underneath because I want my seams to go in the right direction, the direction I press them in. And sometimes your machine bed will push it back as you're stitching, and it's not the end of the world. It will twist the seam, but you can press and starch the heck out of it and make it work, or you could clip it and get it to go in the right direction. So as much as possible, you don't want to have to go through that extra trouble to do that, but if you have to, just know it's not the end of the world, and you don't have to rip something out just because the seam twisted on you. And if you're like me, you leave the seam alone, because if it doesn't bother me, I'm not going to bother it. There's no right or wrong way for my particular fabric choices. I'm not using lines or one that way directional prints. If you were, you need to check the sashing to make sure that it's on the sides that will allow the print to read going across, or the lines to go in the direction that you want them to go into. So that is something to look for. So just in case, you're saying, oh, okay, she's doing it like that, just picking them up and sewing. That's because I don't have direction. If you have direction, you have to function just a little bit differently. Okay. Something happened and we got to fix it. My thread did something funky. I heard it, and then I looked and I was like, nah, that ain't gonna work. Okay. Let's just take that off. So these are done. I don't know why this one's over here. We'll move this over. Now check our thread to make sure everything is in the right place. Okay. It looks good. We'll see if it actually works well. Don't ask me what happened. I couldn't tell you. But everything looks threaded correctly. I was doing chain piecing, so I don't know how it did something funky. And of course, everything was working except my thread can't, it's not in my needle. It looked like it was in there, but it wasn't. That wasn't the problem though. But everything seems to be okay. We'll see what happens. And I do like to live Johnny dangerously when I do this, because there's a whole needle threader. And for some reason, I just like to do it the old-fashioned way, even though this one doesn't want to work on me either today. This is going to be one of my Murphy's Law days. And I changed my needle. There we go. So I changed my needle, so I know it's not the needle. It shouldn't be. Even though it could be, because I could have bent it. Okay, good. So anything can go wrong, and usually, you know, you could check the needle, you can check the tension, you could check the bobbin. Just as areas that, you know, could be of concern. And I'm just taking, so they're sashing. Again, I'm doing the sashing on one side. What is going to happen is with this sashing is that it's going to be to the right of the next block or on the right side of the end. Every starter block needs a sashing, but after I attach the rows, then I will determine which one is the starter, and then I will add the sashing to that. And that's just so that I can begin to put them together. But you could do the reverse, so it's totally up to you. Which way you want to go really doesn't matter. Just don't add a starter to every block. You have 5 rows, only 5 blocks. Need one on the left side of the block. So we are working on the Shooting Stars quilt. It is going to be a patriotic quilt. And the pattern is a free pattern by Jordan Fabrics. I have a video that I did prior to this one that shows you how to put the blocks together, and it also gives you a link for the pattern. So I'm just chain piecing at this point all of the blocks, and I'm adding the sashing to what should be like the right side of the block. There are 15 blocks in all that we are working with. So we're able to just zoom through this process because everybody is getting sashing. Everybody is going to be bordered in sashing. You could put a border on the outside and not do sashing. It will change the look slightly from the way the pattern is. But I'm just following the pattern the way that they have. We are about 4 away from completing the one side. And then what we can do is start putting the blocks. Sorry about that. We could start putting the blocks together. To create the rows. Now there are some quilts that will create columns, and to me, columns and rows are similar. Um, they're sewn together similarly to me, even though they're different. Rows are sewn across, columns are sewn up and down, but you can turn the column sideways to make it look like a row, or you could turn a row so it's up and down to make it look like a column. And if it's an easier way to think when you're stitching things together. I like to stitch things together and think I'm doing it in a row, even though it could be a column. But you follow the directions, because sometimes if, like in this case, the columns and the rows are similar, so it doesn't make a difference if you sew the column first and then the rows, or the rows first and then the column. But sometimes your blocks are staggered, and if they're staggered, that means they're not going to line up evenly either in the column or the row. So then it makes sense that you have to do the column first or the row first. Okay, we have 2 more blocks that we need to complete. I like to say that this is almost the easiest part, but I feel like it's also the most tedious part. You also have to pay attention to what you're putting next. If you have a mixture of blocks, so they're not all the same or similar, because I only have either blue corners or red corners. If they were all completely different, you would lay out your blocks and sew the way I am in the rows, in the order of the row, so that you can keep them in order. With this, it didn't matter, because I'm just going to stagger the reds and the blues, and so it really doesn't matter which way I go. Okay, we're just lining these up. So again, we're working on the Shooting Stars Quilt by Jordan Fabrics. We've already made all of the blocks. There are 15 blocks in this throw quilt. So all of the blocks are together, and now we're just putting all the blocks, the sashes on the blocks, and then we can sew the blocks into rows. For me personally, and different people do it different ways, I don't mind not sewing and pressing at the end of a row versus as I go, because the seams aren't crossing. If my seams were crossing, I would be more concerned. But I'll just press the rows out. So if I have red here, then the next one that needs to go in this, imagine they're all red, is a blue. So this row is going to start off with red, and it's going to end with red. And the blue is going to be in the center. Then the next one will be blue, red, blue. Doesn't matter which way you stitch. So in this time I have the block up. The one before I had the sashing up. It doesn't matter. This way I can see the seams and make sure that they're laying the way that I want them to lay. Yep, your arms are itching. Okay, let's move this out the way. So that's one partial row done. We have red. Now these really, they don't even matter for the most part, because everybody's going to have a red next to a blue. It's when we alternate them that it really matters. And again, this one, the sashing's up, it really doesn't matter. Even though I'm holding this back here, I'm trying real hard not to pull it, because I don't want to stretch my fabric and cause it to wave. Okay, that's 2 rows. For some reason, my head feels a little off today. I don't know why. Okay. So this is a red and a blue. So we're on 3. Remember, we only have 5 rows. So we don't need to, if we sew them all together like this, then we will be seam ripping. So we need to remember that it's only 5 rows that we're doing. There's going to be more than one in each one. And this only reason why I don't need to go beyond that is because I have 3 in each row. If you were creating a bigger quilt, and let's say you had 5 in each row for 5 rows, that would be 25 blocks. Then you could do more sets of these. So it just depends on how many blocks you have in order to make this work out. This is 4. So again, we're just adding our sashing. That's going to go in between each block. It's going to give us a little bit more width. Your sashing can be as reasonably as wide as you want it to be. So if the directions call for 2 inches and you decide you want 3 inches, knock yourself out. If your pattern calls for 1 inch and you decide that you want 4 inches, you could. I wouldn't make it real thick. Then I feel like it's not sashing. But you can make it wider or narrower depending on the look that you're going for. I don't need I want all those blocks, but I don't want the quilt to be that big. I can make a much narrower sashing, or I don't have to include it at all. I could just have butted the 3 blocks up against each other to create the row. So sometimes for my quilts I'll have sashing, and sometimes I won't. I think it helps to make the quilt stand out a little bit better, but the quilt blocks stand out a little bit better, but that's up to you. So we have 1, 2. Set those in my lap. 3 is still on there because I'm chain piecing. 4 and 5. Okay. So this is what we have so far. And again, we haven't pressed. I said I was going to start with red for the first one and end in blue. Now when I do this, this means that this side is already going to have a sash. So the next time that I run these through, I need to put one on this side. And that will end the row. So now we're getting the 3 blocks together. And if you will, the 3 sashes. But remember, we need 4 total. I don't know, maybe it's the glare of the window that's throwing me off. I was already outside once this morning, and I don't think it was that. Okay, So the first row with 3 blocks is complete, starting with red. So that means that the next one that I do is going to start with blue and end with blue. Okay. So we have worked on the quilt blocks in a previous video that is here as well. So the blocks were all completed, and now it is time to add, it's in my lap, it's time to add the sashing and the okay. Make sure I'm not crazy. This is blue, so this is going to end in blue. So I have 1 red, and now I have 2 blues. Make sure I'm not crazy. Yep, 1, 2. Okay. 1 red, 2 blues. And again, you could mark these. It's only 5 rows. And so I just need to, it's easier for me to remember the start. But if, you know, you can't, you can clip them, mark them, separate them. Whatever you see fit to get this completed. Okay. Okay. And if you messed up your order, then you can absolutely try to fix it before you finish everything off, because this is a great time to finish it. So here's the next red, and then the last one is the extra, because we'll have 2 and 2 and then 1 extra, so whichever color it is fine. Okay, and then last but not least, and this, so this one actually started off with the blue because you weren't paying attention, and then it ended in a red. So I just need to do this end. And so this one, the red will be on this side, that's all. And that's what I mean by fix it. Like there's no problem fixing it now, but I could if I wanted to. That's if I wanted to end with the red. And I have to because I have the extra red. And you didn't have to put them in order the way I did. You could have mixed it up. Because maybe you want all reds corners in one row, all blue corners in another row. Like, it's up to you. And I don't even think in the pattern picture that they put everything red, blue, red, or blue, red, red, blue, red, blue. Like, they didn't do that. I think they just did random. Okay. I'll snip these apart. That one in my lap. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this one is still there because it's being chained on. And then the only thing that we have left to do for this row is to add the sashing onto the other side. So I have sashings on both sides of the rows. And then we have a different row to make. And it's just easier for me. You could have done this row by row. It's up to you. Or you could just get all the rows done at one time. Okay. So this one's done. So one's done. 4 more to go. And so what I will do is probably make the sashing rows. These are the block rows. And so then I have a row of sashing that is just the sashing in the squares. And we'll get that one done. And then we'll put the whole quilt together. So I'm methodically kind of thinking through the process that it's going to work best for me. Okay, that's 2 out the way. This long thread is gonna... Sometimes I will clip all the threads at the end. Sometimes I clip them as I sew, and sometimes in between. Usually I do it when I am sewing, but sometimes you miss some or you're rushing. Okay. Next row. Okay. And we're going to get that together. If this was longer, like when I'm attaching the rows together, I'm absolutely using clips. Because this is relatively short, I can eyeball it and use my hands. Okay. And this is the last one for this. So I will have to press these. And that's not a problem. And then we'll talk about the sashing. Row. Or the sash row, or whatever other words you want to use or somebody else wants to use for that row. Okay, let's clip here, clip there. Okay, so we'll pull one out. So this has sashing down on this end, in between, and up on this end. So now we're going to do somewhat of the opposite so that we can border down here and up top as well. So there are 5 rows. Plus you need a border, a sashing border up top and down bottom. So that's a total of 7. So you need 7 of these that we're going to make next. And what's going to happen is, if I can do this in this little area, once I finish pressing these out, we're going to have sashing that's going to be here, and sashing that's going to be here, and in between them is going to go a block. And that block can either be blue for me or it could be red. But I'm going to alternate them. It doesn't matter if it's blue or red because these are both going to be blue or red. So it's going to match one or the other. That's totally up to you. So I set that aside. I have 1, 2, 3 blocks in each row. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because there's one on each side. Or, I could do the reverse. So they could start with red and end with blue. So we're going to have so many that are going to start with the blue and end with the red. Okay. And of course, somebody didn't cut enough of these out, so somebody needs to cut more out. Okay. So we are going to end up putting these together in the next video. So in the next video, we are going to make what I like to call the sashing for the sashing rows. So we're going to put all the sashing rows together. We're going to press these up. We're going to have everything ready, and then we're going to create the sashing borders. But this is what we'll be looking for. I will be cutting out the rest of my fabric to get that set. So hopefully you will join me in the next video. First video, we put the blocks together. Second video, we added the sashing to the blocks. Third video, we're going to create the sashing rows is what I'm calling it. And then the fourth one, we'll put everything together. And that may come up really quickly in the next video. I just need to get some things together. So stay tuned because we're making a patriotic quilt.